Good morning, everybody. It's 9 o'clock. Punctual, first day of the conference, first session. Everybody's here. Happy to see a well-crowded room. It's a nice room. So this morning we're going to discuss or introduce the MIWP 2016-2020. Not only introduce, but also give you a status of what has been going on over the last year since the MIWP was endorsed by the MIC in December. We got 4 presentations. I will start and kick off this session by giving you a general overview of what has happened over the last year and over the last 3 years, to be honest, to just tell you how we came into making a new MIWP and what were the drivers for the new MIWP. Then our colleagues from the GRC are going to go into more depth on some of the actions. Michael will present us the INSPIRE reference validator. Robert will present us the thematic clusters, and Vlado will present us the Streamlining INSPIRE monitoring and reporting for 2019 action that is going on. Without any further ado, I will kick off. I hope everything works. I'm going to try to keep my part brief. I always say that, but sometimes it works. So I also suggest that we take 1 or 2 questions maximum after every session. So limit the questions and answering time, so we can have a part of question and answering at the end of the session, that we can bring all the presenters together and you can ask all your questions to all the presenters at the same time. So if we can keep the presentations, that's also to the presenters, to a maximum of 15 minutes, including questions, then we still have half an hour afterwards to discuss and go into more detail on your expectations, those questions that you have. There we are, the last mile. Just going back a few years, how did we come to make a new MIWP? What were the drivers for it? So most of you know that we had to do a midterm refit of INSPIRE 2014-2015. Now at the same time, we had also a new Commission Yonkers, and they kicked off the Better Regulation initiative. It meant for us at DG Environment that we all, introduce myself first. Julie Robrecht, working at DG Environment on the INSPIRE file, but at the same time also on the implementation of the fitness check for monitoring and reporting, which also has an INSPIRE part. So we'll come back to that one. Sorry for this interruption. So a few years ago, 2014-2015, you had the midterm evaluation and you had the refit going on. We had to refit INSPIRE. Refit meant we have to look into all your directives and legislation that exists and make sure it's effective and efficient. So that's the refit exercise. That's what we did with INSPIRE. We found some conclusions and we took all these conclusions to the member states. So we started a set of bilateral meetings. We had 20 bilateral meetings face-to-face with the member states, and then we had 8 written communications going on. So it all came together in we identified a lot of implementation gaps, which we were able to discuss with the member states in these bilateral meetings. And we asked the member states to address these the identified implementation gaps by providing action plans. All this information in the end went into the country fishes that we published last week. So we published 28 country fishes, which gathers all information in a very synthesized form from the monitoring and reporting. This reporting was the implementation, the 3-annual implementation report exercise, and also the action plans from the member states to have a forward-looking view on what's going to happen in the coming years in all these country fishes. So you can find the country fishes on the INSPIRE website. Thanks to GRC, because they did a great job on getting all the information, synthesizing and developing these country fishes. Now all this information has also gone in a commission report with recommendations how to further adapt INSPIRE to make it more efficient. This has resulted in a new MIWP, a multi-annual maintenance and implementation work program 2017-2020, just to give you the feedback while we've done all this and what has happened in between. Now, title of the presentation, The Last Mile in general, is a telecommunication thing where you say, well, the last mile is the thing that connects the end user to the infrastructure. And the last mile can be complex depending on where the end user is and what his expectations are. So in INSPIRE, we're at the same position now. We built a beautiful infrastructure. It more or less is quite advanced and mature and works. But now we have to connect the end users, of course. So this is also represented in the recommendations to the Commission and the MIWP. And it consists of closing the existing implementation gaps. It's not only implementation gaps in the sense that you're not complying with INSPIRE or your metadata is not 100% compliant and so on. It's also connecting to other processes in the member states and other initiatives like e-government. We also have to bridge the gap between the infrastructure and the end users. And we start with a fitness for purpose, a review and exercise in the MIG to review the implementing rules, which has more or less finished now and is in a state that we will write some recommendations. Discussion has been going on in the committee as well. There might be some changes, but that will depend on the outcome of a written procedure that is going on with the member states, where they will inform us about their position on possible changes on interoperability rules and on the monitoring and reporting decision. So that's a part of possible changes to the legislation as a follow-up of the fitness for purpose exercise. In parallel, GRC is also kicking off a big exercise on reviewing the technical implementing rules. So we will discuss how we can introduce new and more efficient or more proficient kind of service interfaces like REST services. And I know Emilio is here, he loves vector tiles, so that's also something that we can introduce. These kind of things. And in the end, we also put the emphasis from a DGF point of view, because we are DG Environment, we put the emphasis on environmental monitoring and reporting as a result of the fitness check, and we also want to prioritize environmental data. Because in the end, that's why we want to use INSPIRE from a DG Environment point of view. We want to get access to as much possible environmental data that will help us to do the impact assessment for our policies and to see, for example, what the impact is of agriculture on biodiversity, what the impact is of agriculture on species, or pollution on species, or monoculture on species, things like that. So very important questions that will help us to develop more efficient and even more future-oriented legislation. Good. I'm going to try to go a little bit faster now. Not in speaking a little bit slower, but going faster through the slides. So it all ended up in the MIC endorsing the MIWP in last December 2016. It will be updated because it's going on. It's going every year. We will close actions and we'll add new actions. We used to have a very fixed multi-annual work program. And then after 2-3 years, we kind of became aware of the fact that we had to change because the environment had changed. So we will update annual now, and we will close actions as soon as possible and add new actions when necessary or when identified. So what do we have for the moment that's going on? We still have action. We've got this coding. For every year, we got a new action. Is 2016. Means an action identified in 2016. Actions that will be identified this year will have the code 2017. So 2016-3 was about validation and conformity. That is still ongoing. Michael will brief us on that one later on. We've got 2016-4. That's about thematic team-specific issues, meaning the thematic cluster, and Robert will brief us on that one. And we got 2016-5. We just kicked off in Kale on Monday. We had a kickoff meeting, and that's the development of the list of priority data sets, meaning we're providing you a very, very clear scope on the data sets that we expect you to publish on your INSPIRE infrastructure. And it's a list of 48 data sets, and we're developing this list and all the methodologies behind it, how to make the data available and how to follow up. We will discuss this in the subgroup, which has kicked off on Monday. I will come back to this very briefly as well. We closed 2 actions in 2017. That's the fitness for purpose and the review of monitoring and reporting 2019. Vlado Chettel will brief us on the 2016-2 later on as well, and I will give you a short overview of the status of the fitness for purpose, where we are now. So to start with the fitness for purpose, so we had all the discussions and we had a subgroup that prepared the work, and we took the outcome of the work of the subgroup on the fitness for purpose to the committee. Key issues that we identified were that we should make better and more use of the existing flexibilities in the legal framework. Besides the fact that a lot of people are just looking, certainly technical people are only looking at the technical guidelines, but in the end it's the legal framework that decides what you can do and how you have to implement INSPIRE. And there are a lot of flexibilities in there, so we have to make use of it, and then if necessary create new technical guidelines or adapt them slightly to also adapt INSPIRE to your needs, of course, or to the end user needs. We will strengthen the support to implementation by trying to simplify INSPIRE. That's a big word. It's not really simplify, but to adapt it to better usage, for example, to see how we can introduce new user interfaces like vector tiles or service interfaces. And if necessary, we amend the implementing regulations on the NX3 interoperability. Not sure about that one. Written procedure is going on, and we are expecting the opinion of the member states by the 15th of September. So we'll be able to give a view on what we will do on the interoperability rules after the 15th of September. And then it's in the remit of the Commission to decide whether we will do some adaptation of the legislation, yes or no. We already got the go from our hierarchy and Cabinet Vella. I was responsible for the environment in the Commission. So we can do some changes. They agreed on changing the legislation if necessary. But if we don't have to change it and we can keep it like it is, we would be very happy. Except for the reporting part. I think there we should put, and that revision of 2009 monitoring and reporting decision is in the make. We are drafting an updated version of the reporting decision based on the outcome of the subgroup that Vlado was in. And we will try to make it available as soon as possible to the MIC for further discussion so we can discuss this in the committee in December, where after which we start the process to change the legislation, which also takes another probably 6-7 months and has to go through Parliament and Council. So as said, the mandate, we already have the mandate for these actions given to us by our hierarchy. And we would like to start the implementation in 2018 after we had the last committee and we had the go from the committee as well, or the endorsement of the actions that we propose on changing the legal framework. If you want to have more information, there are documents online from the last meeting we had in the MIC. The documents from the committee are not online. They're not publicly available, but a lot of the information is made available through the documents of the MIC as well. So. Second part that we will not further address today because it's still in a very early stage, and that's the list of priority e-reporting data sets. It was endorsed by the MIC in the 5th MIC, that was in December as well, to start building this list of priority data sets. We have created a wiki page where you can find all the information. You will find a list of data sets. That means well, maybe very briefly, a list of data sets is coming from all the reporting obligations of DG Environment. We have 180 reporting obligations. We selected only those ones which need you to report spatial data to the Commission, and that is reflected in that list. And it's boiled down to 48 unique data sets mapped to spatial objects in INSPIRE spatial objects. So it would provide you guidance on which data we expect you to make available for the INSPIRE directive. So it's a very strict scoping of the content that we would like you to make available. And that will also be part of the compliance exercise we do afterwards. Initially, we will first look at the list. And you can make 140,000 data sets available, which we expect you to do if that's the amount of data you've got. But we certainly would like you to make these priority data sets available because they have an immediate use in developing our legislation. So you find all this information on the wiki page, including the mandate, the list, a working document with a lot of information, also mapping of these same data sets to the Sustainable Development Goals and so on and so on, and also a mapping to the core data flows of EEA, so you can see where we've got a common interest in developing or better developing these data sets and the information flows. So it's a very interesting document. This is a subgroup, is being developed by a subgroup, and the subgroup will not stop next year. It will stretch beyond 2020, because this priority list is not a strict, it's not a finished limited list. We will go on developing this list. Now it's 48 data sets. Hopefully by 2020, 2025, we will have 150 data sets on there, and these data sets will cover the immediate information needs of the Commission, and you can even go beyond if necessary. So that's and why would we do it? To make it easier for you to implement this part. So we can implement it together steps-wise. Good. I just want to do some additional stuff, and that's some compliance promotion for the people who are interested in it. But we did a compliance promotion exercise, and we had a strategy, and that included sending the EU pilot letters to member states who didn't connect their discovery services to the EU geoportal, 5 of them, and having these bilateral technical meetings, 2015, 2016. In the end, it was a very successful exercise because now all member states have connected their discovery services to the EU geoportal. That means we can harvest all metadata from all member states. And 26 member states also prepared the action plans with the forward-looking aspects to address identified implementation gaps. Only UK and Ireland are missing from that bunch of people. So, but it's also reflected in the country fishes that you will now be able that have been published online on the INSPIRE website. Now, on the evaluation of this promotion exercise that we did. We thought that the way we addressed it this time, by having this personal contact with the member states and being able to discuss the issues and take this further, and take all the information on the issues that you're encountering with implementation to the implementers and to the technical guidelines at the same time. So it was a very interesting exercise because most of the time DG Environment is not the technical service provider or solution provider. GRC is more aware of these things. So for us, it's quite refreshing to get an idea of the possible issues member states have. From our point of view, it's all about make your data available, share your data. We've got some common rules, and that's laid down in the INSPIRE regulation, which you have to use to make your data available to the Commission. And that's more or less the end point for us. And if you can harmonize by 2020, it would be much easier for us to use your data in the pan-European context to develop our policies. But all the technical infrastructure below it, that's GRC is in the lead there, and they help us. And sometimes it's good for us to discuss with you directly to know what your issues are, because many of the issues are technical, and we identified a lot of these issues. They were not on the conceptual or legal level, but a lot of them were on the technical level. So it was a good exercise for us as well, and it really helped us. And it's been reflected in the MIWP as well. So it also shows that most of you are very mature in INSPIRE implementation. You got a very good common understanding of where we're going to go with INSPIRE. And most of you really know really good which kind of issues you have. It's not like, it's not working, we don't know why. No, you know what's going wrong there. Or it's coordination, or it's real technical issue, it's resources. And then we can look together, if it's resources, we can look together into possible financing through existing EU budgets, things like that. And that really helped us. So now we can help you, more specified on member state level with the information we have from your action plans. That was of course a one-off exercise, but I think in the country fishes you will find the possibility to reflect your vision and actions for the future as well. These country fishes, I think it's very interesting. We developed these country fishes and shared it with you. And the feedback we got from the member states was overall very, very positive. I think all of people liked it. It was for the first time that the managers of the technical people in the MIC could grasp INSPIRE a bit and could grasp the efforts made for INSPIRE and the results coming out of it. It's very visual. It's all about statistics. It's a dashboard. And for the first time, I think, from the Commission side, we provided feedback. Because normally you send us reports, and then it's like a black hole, and they disappear. And we come back to you 3 years later with a kind of midterm review. Hey, that's what you've done over the last years. And then you say, since then we've advanced a lot because that's 3 years ago. So we want to give immediate feedback, and that's why also the country fishes. You will find a Commission opinion on the efforts of the member states and the progress made now. So we hope that it's very helpful, and this is the way we want to take the INSPIRE reporting and monitoring to the future. And after we change the reporting decision together with Vlado and GRC again, we will look into further developing a new information system for monitoring and reporting. So the outcome was very, very positive. So I think we'll close this promotion exercise this year, and we start developing a new strategy, which will also be based on things like priority lists of data sets. We will develop it, and it's for internal discussion, so it's very premature. But we'll come back to you and certainly to the MIC and the committee with what we want to do for the coming years as well. So this is it for me, I think. Oh, no, well, this in more detail. The country fishes that we discussed, they look like this. They're very visual. They got very good information, well, very visual information on the progress made over all the years and the possible issues. You've got this green, orange, red dashboard that identifies the possible implementation gaps, and you've got the future, the outlook on the possible addressing of these identified gaps in these little circles. If they're green, great. You mentioned this and identified this issue in your action plan, and you're addressing it. Bam. Perfect, green. If not, then it's like you've got an issue, you know about it, but you're not addressing it. So please address the issue. So it's very informative. And I think we also prepared an overview fish that for the first time in your life, you will be able to compare your progress and your efforts to other member states. You might not like it. We like it, of course, because that's what we know. But that's a feature that we made, and I think you should have a look at it. We have not published it yet, to be honest, because we received feedback from several member states. We're taking the feedback into account in the development of the fish, of course. But we hope it's also a very valuable instrument to show your management, if you're not doing great, that you need more budget, for example, to implement this European legislation. Could be helpful for some people. So that's it. There's a lot of reference material for the things we discussed, and we went over very quickly right now. And these are the locations you can find them. I suggest that we not start, because I think I went a little bit over time, so we'll keep our questions till the end. But write them down if possible, and then we can come back to it at the end of the session. So thank you. I would now give the word to Michael, I think, who will introduce the validator. Thank you.
Thanks, Yuri. I already have a question maybe for later. I think we should also say a few words afterwards on what the future will be for the work program and the actions that we already have planned, mainly as a follow-up from the fitness for purpose exercise. Because I think during the workshops at least there was quite a bit of interest in some of the planned actions. So I think we say a few words about that at the end as well. Okay. After the overview that Yuri gave, let me delve a bit more into the details of one of the actions, and it's the longest running action that we have under the maintenance and implementation work program on INSPIRE validation and conformity testing. And more specifically, we have moved now into a more practical phase where we are developing an actual tool we call the INSPIRE reference validator that can be used by implementers, by people coordinating the implementation in their countries across the board to see how the implementation is progressing. So a bit of history before we get started. Why do we need a common validator in INSPIRE? And there's a number of reasons. Our main reasons are really to help implementers to move along with their implementation and to give them a practical tool that can automatically be used in order to check whether the implementation actually fulfills the requirements that are laid down in the technical guidance documents. And I think that's an important thing that I need to stress from the beginning. The reference that we use are the technical guidance documents. We heard that there is the only, let's say, legal basis is of course the legislative framework and the legal acts, but these are things that cannot automatically be tested. You need lawyers for that. So basically the only thing we can really sensibly test automatically are the technical requirements in the technical guidance. So that is basically our basis for this work. But we wanted to give implementers a tool that they don't have to read necessarily all the many pages of the technical guidelines, but they can really just run the tool and see which of the requirements they're already meeting and where there's still work to do. At the same time, the tool can also be used by the national coordinators at the European level, at the member state level, to see how the implementation is progressing. And last but not least, it can also be used by solution providers, people who are providing software, to see whether their solutions are actually meeting the requirements of the technical guidelines. We started this work because there was already some work going on in 2014 when we started this activity in the member states at the JRC, where different validators were already being developed. So we said we need to kind of reap some of the synergies and to avoid that there's double work in these different things and that they lead to different results. This is something that we really wanted to avoid. We wanted to come to a common basis, a common understanding. What are the things that need to be tested? What is the common understanding of the requirements and how to test them, and to basically have one, let's say, reference source that gives the consistent results. So after about 2-3 years of work in a subgroup that we had in under the MIG, that was looking at defining abstract test suites for all the technical guidelines, basically the interpretation of the test on an abstract level, we started some year and a half ago to actually put those abstract test suites into an implementation and to develop an INSPIRE validator based on the abstract test suites that were agreed by the MIG. This is supported by the ARENA action under the ISA program. It's a program for supporting e-government interoperability, and we have 2 contractors, PricewaterhouseCoopers and Interactive Instruments. Clemens is in the room in the back there, that have been working on the development of these tools. So the main goals for the first release that we released in July was to develop the tests that we needed to cover, let's say, the upcoming deadlines for Annex 1 at the end of this year. So we wanted to have the Annex 1 data specifications covered, the metadata and the download services based on the Atom and the WFS specifications. The overall goal for this tool is basically to come up with a reusable tool that can be used for different purposes as well. It's open source, and that is providing the reference across Europe for INSPIRE implementations. We didn't want to start from scratch. We wanted to use as much as possible existing solutions, and it should have been, or it should be, a tool that is configurable, and you can basically add additional test rules for your national requirements or thematic requirements as well. Here's a bit of the timeline. As I said, we started this work in 2014. Then throughout 2014 and 15, we worked on the abstract test suites as a common basis for this tool. And then in the end of 2015, we started the development of this common validator, and we released the first public version of the tool in July this year. A few words on the abstract test suites. As I said, they were developed by the subgroup with some support from contractors and have been reviewed by the MIG. And they cover basically all the tests for the INSPIRE services, the metadata, and the data specifications for Annex 1. We're still missing the tests for the Annex 2 and 3. Theme-specific requirements, so the cross-cutting requirements we already have, but there are some theme-specific requirements for the Annex 2 and 3 that are not yet covered, but otherwise they're basically complete. The other thing we're still missing is also the abstract test suite for the new metadata guidelines version 2.0. They're managed in a repository, so basically this is one of the things that makes this easily, let's say, trackable and maintainable, is that we're using a GitHub repository where we're storing both the abstract test suites, and you will also later see the executable test suites, and these can be used also to manage the discussion questions, issues with the different with the abstract test suites that are being discovered over time. Okay, moving to executable test suites, that is basically the implementation of what is specified on an abstract level in the abstract test suites. They're now available, as I said, for Annex 1, for data specifications, or metadata, and for the Atom and WFS download services. And we're still missing a number of ETS for the new metadata guidelines, so the Annex 2 and 3, view services, discovery, and the other download services. When you use the validator, you will be offered all the available test suites that are available in the tool. As additional ones will become available, we will be adding them to the tool as well. Again, as I said, they are also managed in a GitHub repository, and there is also developer guidance. Well, there's user guidance that explains on how to use the tool, obviously, but we also have come up with guidance for developers. So if you want to develop additional test suites for your countries, or you want to support, let's say, the European effort to add some of the executable test suites that we're still missing, there are some developer guidance that basically help you to get started with and explain basically how these test suites are being developed. Just to give you a bit of a flavor of how this the results of the tests look like. The tests are structured into conformance classes. For each of the test suites, you have a number of conformance classes that group together tests that are, let's say, on a common topic, and you will be able to dig down in detail into the tests that have failed. You have the possibility to show more or less details. You are able to show only the failed tests or all the tests, and so on. And you will get more information about also the requirements that have been tested, the links to the abstract test suite where it's defined on how the tests are being executed, and you get some very detailed error messages showing you really where the things have gone wrong. We had an interesting workshop yesterday in Kiel where we were basically demoing with some sample data sets that we received from some of the participants before the workshop. And we really showed in detail on how this is happening and how to interpret the error reports and how to fix errors and run your implementation to improve your implementation. If you're interested to have a closer look, please come see us at the stand. We can arrange a date and then show you the tool in action, let's say. A few words about the overall software that is supporting this. It's basically built on an existing tool called ETF that is an open source testing framework for SDIs that was meant to be a user-friendly tool that is consistent with OGC ISO specification models and that can be used to test metadata, data sets, and services in an SDI. The tool is available for download, and it can be, there's two ways in deploying it. We have a central instance that is running at JRC, currently still in a sandbox environment, and we're still looking into possibilities to make it to deploy it in a more performant and more responsive environment. But there will be a central instance at the JRC that can be used by anyone in the infrastructure to test their resources. But obviously, sometimes you have very big data sets, and maybe you don't want to ship gigabytes of data over the web and have it run in a central instance. Or maybe you have access restrictions to the data set, and you don't want to. You cannot use that from a central instance because there will be interactions between the central instance and your data and services. So the other possibility is that you download the software and then you deploy it inside your own organization. So you will be able to actually run the tests inside your own infrastructure without having to go over the internet. So that's the other option. And again, there's manuals and for deployment and installation available that make it easier for you to deploy. And there's different options also for deployment as well. There's also an API to the test framework, so that basically allows you to interact with the framework, with the instance, also remotely in a machine-to-machine interaction, and that basically allows you, if you wanted to build your own scripts or you want to integrate it into your development workflow, into your implementation workflows, that you can interact with the service also through this API. Other important features of the test framework is that it provides a test driver for the OGC team engine for some of the tests mainly related to the WFS. We are contacting the site tests of OGC. It's possible to kind of test a number of different conformance classes in a single test run. And also you can select several files for a single test run as well for the metadata and data tests. And last but not least, there is support for multilinguality. Currently, it only works in English, but it's possible to add additional languages, both for the user interface and the test reports. If you're interested to help us add your language to the tool, please get in touch with us and try and help us to put the additional languages into the tool. And again, there is the manuals for users, developers, and administrators as well. One important thing that we discovered during the testing phase is that we received feedback from testers. I should say at this point that that there has been testing in the MIG, but we're really looking for a much more wider use of the software and basically receiving feedback from the community. Because only when you run the tools on your real data, not just on test data, and so will you discover certain issues and bugs in the software. So it really is important that we get feedback from you as early as possible so that we can improve the executable and the abstract tests and the software as well. What we discover is that the feedback can be on different levels. You maybe do a test run on your data or services and you see a result that you didn't expect. And then when you dig down into the error report, you find something that you don't agree with the result of the testing. You think what you've done is correct, but it still throws an error. Now, the error could be in the implementation of the executable tests. It could be in the definition of the tests in the abstract test suite, or it could be even that the requirement in the technical guidance is not as it should be, and maybe it's a requirement that is not even reflected in the legal act. So we have these cases, or we could have these cases, and I think we need to, and we have some examples on where an error in the, let's say in the executable tests also filters down all the way to the technical guidelines. So we've basically, this is one of the reasons why we now starting again fresh, the section 2016.3, to actually support us in the process of dealing with feedback, on looking at the feedback that is coming, especially when the feedback is not just a bug in the software, but it is really related to the technical guidelines or the way that the tests are being defined in the abstract test suites. Also, we need support to complete the executable and abstract test suites, as I said, and to support us in the further development and rollout and promotion of the testing framework. So if you're into validation in general and you would like to support this activity, please look at the call for participation or talk to your MIG representatives to have yourself nominated for this new group. That's it from me. If you want to get involved, there's several ways. You can provide feedback on the ATS, ETS, or the software through GitHub. You can join the group. You can develop your own tests by looking at the developer manuals, or you could come and visit us at the stand as a first step to get a closer look at the tool and get a small demo, maybe even test your own data or services. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Well, maybe I can open the floor for just one question.
Sure.
We still got 2 minutes, I think. Oh, Ine was the first.
Yes.
Okay, so I think that's helpful.
Okay, so maybe if you didn't hear, the question was whether the validator is now available without authentication, because it was restricted during the testing phase. It is now publicly available on a sandbox server. So I need to say a few words of caution. It is still in a sandbox environment, so it doesn't maybe have the performance that it will and should have in the future. But it is available for public testing, and we're really looking forward to get as much feedback as possible on the existing instance. I mean, also in terms of user interface, understandability of the tests, suggestions for improvements, anything helps.
Thanks, Michael. Just one. Emilio, have another question there. Last one.
This tool is going to replace the test validator in the geoportal and the test validator in the monitoring and reporting platform when we upload our.
Yes. In the long, I mean, we haven't really started on that work yet, but that is the idea, because it is the commonly agreed, it is based on the commonly agreed ATS in the MIG, so it will replace the validators that we're currently using in the geoportal.
Maybe I can slightly amend to that one. We had a workshop on yesterday in Kiel where the new version of the dashboard was presented, the Kibana, which replaces Banana, which was the old one. But it has the ability to connect the validator, and that's one of the things that our colleagues from the EEA, the responsible for the dashboard, might be developing in the coming months, but as we discussed, we have to first do the transition to this new version and then integrate the validator.
I think the important thing here is that we would like to wait with that also for the geoportal and maybe for the dashboard until we're reasonably sure that the tests are really the ones that you expect them to be. For example, we had when we did the workshop yesterday, we came up against one of the abstract tests that had a long discussion about coordinate reference systems in the metadata that we've had on the old validator some while ago, where we changed the behavior of the old validator. And according to the abstract test suite, it is again the behavior that we had before all the discussion. So we need to make sure that we actually are reasonably happy with the behavior before then we do the switch over. Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Michael. Then I will go to the floor, I think, to Vlado is next one, Vlado Chettel, and he will present us the streamlining exercise of the INSPIRE monitoring and reporting for 2019. I see that I'm on there as well, Vlado, but I hope you don't expect me to.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Yuri. Okay, so it's my honor to present you today the work, actually, what we did in this subgroup on monitoring and reporting. As Yuri already mentioned, the subgroup or the work is temporarily closed for the time being. So we are expecting to restart the action probably after the INSPIRE committee in December with the work on the country fish systems for the future reporting. Okay, so first of all, why we established this group? With the discussion with the member states, we came to the conclusion, and I think you can all agree that in the current reporting system there are really many textual information. It is really time consuming to do the reports. At the end, the reports are not comparable, so we cannot compare one member state with another, so it's really difficult. Also, there is no always consistency with the metadata, and actually already in the previous working program there was a working group 16 dealing with some of those issues, so we didn't start from the scratch, but we took into account all the findings and conclusions from the previous working group 16. Yeah, at the end, as Yuri also mentioned, there is new things with the better regulation and the fitness check. It was also taken into the account, as well as the concept of the key performance indicators, dashboards and country fishes, which at the end should give us more extensive reporting resources and reporting services endpoints. Okay, so what were the tasks of the working group, of the subgroup? First, we divided the tasks into the several phases, actually. So we started with the conceptual in 2016, where we tried first to somehow to analyze the needs from the member states and to collect all the issues which were recognized in the existing reportings. Then we also started to develop a key performance indicators framework. We started also to draft the changes for the implementing rules, so for the regulation on monitoring and reporting, and also analyzing change impact, functional and technical needs. In this year, actually beginning of this year, we already did proposals for an update for the regulation. We did this revision, and we started actually to develop country fishes, which also Yuri already presented. So we expect actually that in 2018 we will develop the system fully operational for the country fishes. So that will be probably some kind of the content management system or whatever, and the member states, actually the people who are providing monitoring and reporting, will have full access to it, and that they will also be able to change on the ordinary basis the data actually in the country fishes. Very briefly about the subgroup. So we had several meetings, started in 2016, and the last one was in April this year, where we were preparing all the documents for the MIG meeting in June and for the committee meeting. We had 2 face-to-face meetings in ISPRA, where we really thoroughly discussed all the issues regarding monitoring and reporting. So what are the results of the work in the subgroup? So as I already mentioned, we provided this review of the monitoring and reporting decision. It was endorsed by the MIG, and we are still waiting for some comments on it, but we will prepare the final draft for the committee in December, as Yuri already mentioned. There were 3 scenarios actually proposed regarding these changes in the reporting decision. So the first one was actually not to change anything, not to change reporting decision, and also no change to metadata. Second scenario was to change the reporting decision without changes to the metadata, and the third one, changes to reporting decision and metadata. So scenario 2 was actually proposed and accepted by MIG in June meeting, so which means that we will go for the change in reporting decision, but not touching the metadata again. So we will try, of course, to as much as possible to automate actually the monitoring with the existing metadata, and we already have several examples from Netherlands, for example. They're already using existing metadata for the monitoring. So follow-up is targeted for 2018. So we expect that at the committee in December it will be fully accepted, the final draft of the revision of the regulation. The very big work we invest in developing of the country fishes. So the idea was actually really somehow to develop a system, a comparable system where we can really easily follow what is going on in member states, but in a way that we can compare the status of implementation between the member states. So first we developed some kind of the template, which actually is consisting of several parts. The first part is more or less the statical, and it's based on these 3 years reports. So we try to summarize all what was written in the reports. It was sometimes really difficult. We also had the lingual issues with the languages, because we didn't cover actually all the languages. Some reports were in English, but actually in majority the reports were in national languages. So it took us some time really to read all of these reports and to summarize it in a consistent way. We kept actually the structure of this part according to the regulation, how it is, and guidance. So with the coordination, functioning, usage, data sharing, and at the end costs and benefits. Then we integrated the part actually from the dashboard, which is more dynamic, with some key facts and figures. So this is the part most interesting, I would say. Then Outlook, which was based actually on the action plans provided. So as Yuri already mentioned, we were missing only UK and Ireland with the action plans. Then the summary, or actually the dashboard, which is a very interesting part, and at the end some recommendations which were provided actually by DG Environment to each member states in a particular, according to particular situation in the implementation status. The concept of the fishes was introduced by the Commission and discussed with the experts in MIG, and we got really positive feedback from all the member states, and for sure we can say that it will simplify and improve current system of the reporting in the future. Already we got the feedback from the member states that they are using country fishes on the national level to revise their action plan or documents the progress they made on the national level. The country fishes are published on the INSPIRE knowledge base, also on the INSPIRE web page. So in the section INSPIRE in your country, so you are all very welcome to go there and to see how it looks like. What we are still missing is this EU fish. So what Yuri mentioned, so we will publish it very soon. where you will then have, let's say, overview of all the member states, and it will be really easy to compare what is status in your country according to other member states and other countries. As I said, the dashboard is something which is, of course, most visible for all, where you can see the smiley faces, some colors, green, yellow, red, and so on and so on. But this is something which gives you really a very quick overview of how the country is doing, what's the status, and so on, and what is the actually future plans, or is it outlook clear or not, and so on and so on. So I think it's really nice, and yeah, as I said, we got really positive feedback from all the member states. So in the future work, as I said, country fishes are already recognized as a driver to simplify reporting under the INSPIRE. Also, it maximally reuses existing metadata. Now we can really easily compare the reports across the member states. And also, it is an instrument for feedback by the Commission on the implementation effort of the member states. So future development, actually, I already mentioned, is towards an automated content, probably content management system, as I said, where information could be updated maybe on the annual basis or even more frequently. So as you saw, or you will see in the country fishes, we have some statical parts which probably is not changing very often, so like organization of NSDI in your country. But if there is a change, so I think it will be nice that the people who are providing monitoring reporting, they will have regular access to the country fish, so they can change, so they will not have to wait for 3 years to do these changes, but they can change it actually on a frequent basis or whenever actually needed. So basically we can then have really country fish updated on a yearly basis with also taking metadata. Yeah, that would be actually all from myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vlado. Oh, Vlado, please stay still. I think we've got time for 2 questions again. So if there are questions from the audience, please go ahead. It was extremely clear, Vlado. No. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Please, Robert, I invite you. Another colleague from GRC, Robert Thomas, and he will give us a presentation on the status of the thematic clusters, or as we call it, the thematic team-specific issues of data specifications and exchange of implementation experience in thematic domains. In short, it's thematic clusters, so please go ahead, Robert.
Okay, thank you. Good morning from my side. I would call it even shorter. I would call it's a support to the communities. Okay, this is a concrete support of the Commission to the communities of implementers in our domain. And as Michael said, he referred that the validation and work around the validating is the longest action or the oldest action. I would say that the support to the communities goes even further because we were supporting, I don't know, some of you maybe remember INSPIRE Forum. There was also an application where we were helping to share experiences already there. So the thematic cluster and the platform is a kind of a follow-up of the INSPIRE Forum. So therefore, I would say that that action is really the oldest. So, right? Vlado, how did you move? Oh, here. Okay. Okay. So first of all, allow me to ask you who has been to the thematic cluster platform from the audience? Wow. Who hasn't been? Not. Oh. Okay. So I think that the majority have already been there. So just a little refreshment why we are doing this. So I think despite the huge amount of the technical and legal documentation that INSPIRE or we have produced together, there are still many aspects that need some agreement, and the agreement usually is really thematic driven. So it's really communities that should agree on the way data is provided. For instance, the organizations of the layers inside the view service, organization of the download files. Also, we put a concept of the empty code list, for instance, in the data specification. So these are the things where really the agreement inside the community is fundamental. So I think that this is basically the main driver for having a platform where you can share and get to the agreement in order to really facilitate interoperability. So we cannot regulate everything, we cannot come up with the solution to everything. It really has to be agreement inside the communities. Okay, so this is one aspect. The other aspect is it's a platform where we facilitate the change proposals. Okay, so this is the place where you go, you say, okay, I've tried to implement, I've tried to understand, I don't understand this, it didn't work that. So you put it there, and then you should see the reaction, and once the issue is mature enough, then there is a possibility that through the process that we have put in place, that request for change will come up to the MIC, and finally it will make it to the corrigendum, for instance, that we, as you know, we published the first corrigendum in the end of last year, and that's a direct kind of a product of this collaborative effort. Okay, and of course it's a platform for discussing the future links, so it's really a networking thing. So officially, the platform was launched 3 years ago, so we are almost celebrating 3 years, so time flies. And it's organized according to 9 clusters. So we basically group all the 34 teams into 9 clusters, and we selected a domain expert, an INSPIRE and domain expert, to be precise, to facilitate each of the cluster. Okay, so it's not driven by the commission, it's really driven by the communities and the selected experts there. The platform is open to all, so there is no need to register for anything. You just go to the platform and you try to look for whatever resource, whatever issue, topic, etc. you would like to know more about. Of course, that if you want to publish your issue and your best practice or your question, then you have to register, because that's the only way. Okay, so there is an ECAS registration system that is needed, which is very simple. Once you register, you are able to really actively contribute to the discussions to provide your best practice. So, as I said, it's a collaborative platform. It's a huge knowledge base by now. So I will show you some statistics of the content. So it is really a knowledge base of really the experiences from implementing. There are a lot of issues, there are discussions around issues, then once the issues are kind of again, mature enough, then facilitators are advised to provide a kind of a packaging around, so there are dedicated pages where the facilitators have extracted the information that was discussed, again, for others to be more clear, to find the solutions, to find the best practices. So basically all these, sharing, finding, discussing, and of course, proposing. So I mentioned the possibility to propose changes that if it's mature enough, if it's well documented, then it will reach also to the level that we will change the technical or even the legal framework. So where you can find it, it's a very important part of the INSPIRE website, or INSPIRE knowledge base as we call it now. So on the first page you will find the thematic clusters, and you go to the landing page of the cluster. I mentioned the organization, that it is really based on the work of the 9 selected experts, 9 facilitators. Many of them are in the audience here, but also there is a very strong and close link with the MIWP representatives, and this is very, very important, because MIWP representatives are the technical contacts for the implementation in their respective countries. So therefore we added to facilitators, we added a kind of a MIWP liaisons. So there is a couple now that really are discussing and sharing the information, what's going on in the community, and it's another way of promoting the issues to the wider MIG community, that we can then address it at the European level. Okay, so I said that I will show you some statistics. So this is a statistics from, I think, last week. So there are over 800 registered members. But once again, you know, you don't need to register to get to the platform, to get your information, to download the best practice, presentation, etc. Only if you want to actively participate, then you register. Okay, so there are 50 groups currently. And as you can see, there are over almost 600 discussions ongoing, some of them ongoing, some of them already closed, and almost 1,500 responses to it. 200 files uploaded, and what is important, there is this 185 dedicated pages. That, as I said, that once there is a topic kind of a mature and you have enough information, then usually the facilitators are creating dedicated pages where the things are aggregated for better use. So you also see the number of visits from the beginning of the year. So we are roughly at 14,000 people. Is it enough? Is it not enough? I don't know. Of course, we would like to see it more, but it's really up to you. You know, it's a knowledge base for you. So I would really encourage you to use it, because it's a knowledge base. It's the best way. You starting with Inspire, go to the cluster and see what, you know, in my domain, in my issue is already there. So it's the first thing. I also put the numbers by clusters, so the members to the cluster, so you can see that, for instance, the topographic and raster reference data cluster is winning at this moment. There is a big rivalry between Eurogeographics and Eurogeosurvey. So currently, Eurogeographics is leading by, I don't know, eight members. So I think that geologists, they should do something. You know? I'm geologist by origin. So yeah. What is important also, that the content is okay. I said it's organized according to the clusters, so thematic clusters, but also the content then is grouped by categories, and this is cross-cutting. Okay, so it's another way how you can get to the content. So we selected, or we define roughly, I don't know, 15, 18 categories. So you can directly go to the categories without going to the dedicated team. So for instance, I'm interested in tools, software tools. So as you can see, currently we have 212 information items, I would call it. You know, it could be a best practice, it could be a discussion topic, it could be a response, etc. So, for instance, yesterday we had there was a very nice workshop on calling Inspiring Practice, or Practicing Inspire, something like this. And already the presentation from this very interesting workshop, where people were sharing concrete issues with using GeoServer, using Degree, the member states' experience with setting up services. Already the presentations are there, suggestions are already there. So just to give you a flavor what you can expect there. Okay, so ways forward, what we are thinking now about there, how to improve it. So we, in the framework of the ARENA ISA action, we develop something that we call Inspiring Practice. So it might seem a very kind of a similar activity. So therefore, we really now trying to integrate this activity together in order, again, to provide even better support and better access to the reusable tools and best practices. So one idea that we are now developing is to provide a reference implementation for each of the team. And that reference implementation would be described unique or commonly. That was developed in ARENA, how to commonly describe the Inspire implementation. But also that should be complemented by the tooling, so which tools were used, also the links to the services and applications that demonstrate that good reference, good practice, etc. So this is something that we are thinking about now. Then we are also we will refresh the documentation of the suggestion that we are receiving from facilitators. So we will be monitoring them or documenting them better, and then we will provide kind of a dashboard of the status of each of the suggestions that we received from the communities, in order that you can monitor whether that issue is being addressed, whether the issue is closed, or the issue is, I don't know, being discussed at the workshop that we are planning, something like this, or that the issue has it made to the corrigendum, okay? And having this kind of a dashboard, like better overview of the issues proposed and the status, we are also trying to be better involved ourselves to respond to the questions that sometimes are waiting there for us. So I think, and not only to us, also to make and make MIWP. Okay, so last slide. What is the common issue that we have been facing? And the common issue is really a fear of people to publish a question, to publish even a good practice, because they think, okay, it's a European Commission platform, it's formal, so we are not sure whether what we've done is correct, so therefore I'm not going to show it to anybody. No, so this is a message that I would like to pass here. Please help me in sharing that we are encouraging even imperfect solution to be published. Okay, it's very important, because we are getting from facilitators this feedback that there is a still big fear to publish the issue, to ask questions, to show the best practice. Okay. Last information I would like to tell you is that each facilitator is organizing a kind of a face-to-face meeting with their members. So here is a schedule of those meetings. So we will start, it's today and tomorrow, and also Friday for geologists. So these are the meetings where the meeting point is the INSPIRE stand. So at INSPIRE stand at these hours, so today it's at 1 o'clock, there is a meeting of the joint meeting of the, let's say, the mapping community and the community of related to elevation, autoimagery, grids, coverages. And there will be a discussions with the community, what to improve, what are the new projects that should be shared the information about. Okay, then we continue tomorrow and Friday. Okay, so that's it from my side. Thank you very much.
I think I can open the floor for one or two questions on Robert's presentation, and then I suppose we open the floor entirely for all presentations and even beyond. Please. So.
Can you change your time on Friday from 1 to 2 o'clock to a bit earlier time, because it's the time when many of us already have left? Maybe that you reschedule your time on Friday afternoon.
Yeah, that there is a little issue, because the times were already announced 2-3 weeks ago or months ago, so that the members are already aware of the timing. So at this moment it will be very difficult to change the scheduling. But if you have any questions regarding the earth science, you mentioned the earth science cluster, so you come to me, it's not a problem. Or Carlo, is Carlo here? I don't see. No, come to me, it's not a problem.
Posted a topic on the thematic cluster about code lists, and it hasn't raised a lot of discussion like I hoped. So what suggestions do you have for keeping a topic alive?
Yeah, well,
My question too.
it's a common issue, no? So we are supporting facilitators to chase these things. So if there is a topic and there is no reaction, so we are encouraging facilitators to try to motivate the reactions. We will also try to be more active, and if the question is relayed or is addressed to JRC or to us, then we will also try to respond. So there is no way, what can we do? So it's only encouragement, and so.
I think maybe just to add to that, the thing is, the idea of the thematic clusters was that it is a community platform. It wasn't initially meant as a place where you can ask questions to the commission.
Yeah, exactly.
However, a lot of people like to use it in that way. So we keep seeing questions coming up that are basically trying to get a official position on an interpretation or something that isn't clear from the Commission side, and it wasn't meant initially as that. But we recognize that there is this interest from the community to have a channel where they can ask questions, and I think that is something that we need to rediscuss on whether the thematic classes or maybe some other channel needs to be open to actually distinguish these kind of community discussions where somebody says, I have something nice here that I would like to share and get your feedback on, from the questions where somebody says, I need official answer, or I need I would like to have a statement from the Commission on this topic.
Yeah. I was going to show you, but maybe I was interested in the code list things because I know there is a lot of discussions about code list, how to extend code list, how to put your national vocabularies, etc. By the way, there is a guidance on it's related to the registry as well. So the terminology, etc. It's related to registry, and we published recently the guidance on that. So there are links to examples how to do the extension of the code list. So, for instance, if this is the question.
Maybe the other thing to add at this point is that we are struggling a bit with kind of cross-cutting questions because it was meant as a thematic platform. So we said a lot of the implementation questions are of thematic nature. So people that have that are implementing geology will have different questions than people are implementing utility services, for example. However, there are questions like on code lists, like on metadata and so on that are cross-cutting. But the current implementation basically forces you to put it in one of the clusters. Exactly. There's no common place where you say, okay, this is cross-cutting. We have discussed with the facilitators different ways on highlighting cross-cutting issues as well, but we recognize that this is still something that
I just put it on the marine and atmosphere because that was one of the topics that was relevant.
Okay. So I put it online, so allow me 1 minute. So yes, that's true that if there is a cross-cutting issue, then where to put it. But as I tried to explain, there are those cross-cutting categories. So for instance, the code list related issues is a category. So it doesn't matter really where you put it. You just put, you just tag it with the category code list, and then everybody will find it. So this is what I wanted to show you, that instead of trying to find your cluster, you just go by the topic you are interested in. So one way is the categories. So if you click on the code list, you directly go to the issues related, or the let's say the information items that we have in the forum, and you can see it here. And then you can subtype it, you can subdivide it inside that filter already. Another option is we have a system of tags of the keywords, okay, that you can put to your whatever document question you create. And again, that these are cross-cutting things. So here is a tag cloud. So when you pose your question, immediately it offers you, okay, what keywords you would like to attach to this, and the keywords are offered from the ones that already been used. So in order to minimize the duplicity. So again, you don't need to really think about which team I belong to. It doesn't matter if it's a cross-cutting thing. So it's just I wanted to clarify, but it could be better maybe. I agree, but this option for cross-cutting things are there.
Oh, thanks, Robert. A very clear and pragmatic answer. And to be honest, 14,000 people that want to dig deeper in the technical plumbing of INSPIRE. I don't think that's too bad. If I look at the availability of the capacity in the member states, that's even surprisingly high. So I would like to open the floor now for questions to all presenters. So if you got a question also on the previous presentations, please go ahead. Georgie.
Is plan to add the new services as something to be capable of validation and validator?
yes, definitely. As I said, there are a number of missing Okay, the question was whether we were planning to add the view services also to the validator. Yes, that is definitely one of the missing components that we need to add. We've asked member states to prioritize from the list of missing test suites the ones that they thought we should start with first. And the reply was basically we should start with the new metadata technical guidelines. And then I think view service is probably the next bit on the list. That or the Annex 2 and 3 data specifications. But that is clearly one of the things that people told us that we should start working on. What I found interesting is that we asked for whether we should start with the WMS or the WMTS. And the WMS got much higher feedback, where I always thought that a lot of people are actually using WMTS to implement, but maybe that's a wrong impression from my side. Can I use that chance that I'm standing up here to talk a bit about the upcoming actions that we're planning?
Yeah, if I get the chance to, well, no. I will be very brief, Michael, and then I give the word back to you. So on the country fishes, I wanted to add one thing on policy level. We've got also an exercise which is called the Environmental Implementation Review, which gives you a report on your overall performance and the implementation of the environmental directives. It has been launched this year. We made a bit noise about it, but that shows the common methodology that DG Environment will use on the reporting side. So you will get more and more country fishes. And if you look at the INSPIRE country fish, at the recommendation at the end, you will find a very clear link on the recommendation side, because it's the same recommendation as you will find in the AER. It's our goal and our objective to optimize the systems as much as possible, reuse data as much as possible, and make the link, which is by actually linking all the country fishes from all the different directives to this AER exercise. So that's something that's very high level, because that's part of the European semester. So that's something that we're doing at DG Environment as well. For people that are very into environment, they should know about it probably. On the actions, because Michael is going to introduce some actions, I will introduce some actions as well that are outside of the scope, but I want to mention it to you. So besides the actions that are in the scope of the MIWP, we also have two internal actions at the Commission side. And one of the actions is the Article 17 study, meaning data sharing study is going on as well. We have kicked it off, or we kick it off next week, I don't know, but it will start the end of this year. And we will look into data sharing in the member states and whether the access to data is realized or not, and how we could modernize and integrate the data sharing aspect, Article 17 of the INSPIRE directive, with the new PSI directive. So that's very important, because it's not only communication, data sharing between public authorities, also with private sector, and also private sector with the public, and so it goes beyond. So that's a very big opportunity for us to take a data sharing action and article to a more broader scope within the remit of the Commission. So that's one thing, one action, and the other action that you might be confronted with in the coming months is a action on data harvesting, which has been kicked off under the Fitness Action Plan. We did a fitness check on monitoring and reporting last year. It has been finalized, and we published an action plan a few months just before summer, I think, with 10 actions, and 4 of the 10 actions are also very INSPIRE related. One of the things is how to get better access to data, and that's the harvesting study. It also goes beyond the scope of INSPIRE, because it also looks at other sources, well, beyond the scope. It looks at other possible sources like Copernicus, Earth observation, to replace some of the information demands we put on the member states right now. If we can get the data from another source without bothering the member states and create less burden, we will do it. So that's part of the exercise as well, and that will be kicked off very soon. So that's it from my part as additional information. So I would like to give the floor back to Michael to go into more extent on the ongoing actions. Thank you.
Not really ongoing. There were three things that we identified in the Fitness for Purpose exercise that Yuri presented in his presentation as concrete follow-up actions. We, as Yuri said, we identified that we're not making enough use of existing flexibilities in the legal framework. And the one concrete action that has been discussed a lot was the question of the encodings for the data specification. So as you know, In the INSPIRE data specification, there's one default encoding currently included, which is based on GML, and that has received a lot of criticism or questions and mentions of complexity and so on. So we will be looking into alternative encodings to the current default encodings that are currently in the data specifications. It also often comes under the heading of flattening the encoding, so basically meaning that you, rather than having complex structures in the XML, you have a rather flat structure, as you know it from our beloved shapefiles or similar data structures. So that is one of the actions that we're going to start, and we're going to hopefully make a proposal for a concrete activity in the coming months, and also create a group to support this activity. And we will also ask basically the stakeholder community for examples of other encodings based on GML or other formats as well, that we can use as input for that. So that's one important activity. The second one is basically to go to the other side and say, look, a lot of the criticism came from the fact that the current complex GML files are not very well supported in client applications, and it's difficult to open them in your GIS tools that you use every day. So that is another action that we would like to do, is to work with vendors, open source, but also commercial, to see how we can get them to have better support for the complex GML encodings, because we still see a role for them. It's clear that for some applications, maybe it's enough to have a simplified flat encoding, but for other ones, you may need to have the full expressivity that we have in the current default encodings. And then it is of course a problem if there are no tools, or not many tools around that can actually read and display and deal with these kind of complex structures. So that is a second action that goes very closely together with the first. And then the third one, again, is a bit related to the fact that a lot of people in the member states, and that is one of the outcomes of the bilaterals as well as many of the conferences, struggle, especially at the managerial level, to really understand what it is that you really have to do to implement INSPIRE. So we have all very detailed technical guidelines for all the different components, but what we're lacking maybe at some point is a kind of a first level overview or introduction for dummies or for beginners, and that really give you on a very high level an overview of what are your legal obligations that you have to fulfill in INSPIRE, and then that points, let's say, to the more detailed the guidelines in the end. That could come in the form of a document. It could probably be even more useful if it came in the form of a flow chart or of an interactive graphic or something like that. So that is the third action, what we call the master guidance, or the INSPIRE for Dummies guidance, that will give this kind of first level introduction. And the idea is that basically we don't ask the technical people that have been working on the technical guidelines so far to write that, but more I wouldn't say the dummies themselves, but the more people at the policy level, at the managerial level, to kind of help us to kind of find the right language also to come up with this this group. So these are the three main actions that came out of this fitness for purpose action discussion, and then we will launch in the second half of this year, probably to be adopted formally by the MIG meeting in December, but we will already start with the preparation and the definition of the tasks in the coming months. So if you're interested in participating in any of those actions, please get in touch with us, and there will be follow-up along those lines in the coming months.
Thanks a lot, Michael. Maybe people have questions about all these new elements brought to the table. So if you got a question about what Michael just proposed or presented, I just want to add to this one that the master guidance is also for us is very important, because that's the step to simplify the implementation in an easy way, to make it more comprehensible for people to see what it is that I have to do to implement INSPIRE. At the same time, from our point of view, and Michael is right, it's very difficult to do a legal assessment of the compliance, and it's part of the interpretation. Interpretation is within the remit of the EU court of law. It's not the official who interprets the law, so that makes it extra difficult. But we will try from our side, from the DG Environment side, to give some guidance on some best practices and very clear rules. And we hope that in the end we might be able to define some rules that will be implemented, or could be implemented in the validator as well. And this could start with some very high level rules from our point of view. Start with, do you have the metadata? Do you have a service? Is it accessible? To start with, as the main questions on the legal compliance. Beyond that, we go into more detail, and then there might be some interpretation. And that's part of the compliance exercise that we're doing and the new strategy that will be developed in the coming years. But we hope that we might contribute with a set of rules that might do a first assessment of legal compliance. That would be our goal as well. So it's a very valuable exercise, master guidance and validator. So thank you. So if you got still questions, we think we still got 5 minutes. Dominique.
What about the simplification of Annex C? Do you have any scenario in mind? What might be simplified? Is it about all themes or only some of them?
We have all kinds of scenarios in mind, and we've discussed it over the last year and a half with the member states in the subgroup for fitness for purpose. We had a committee in June to discuss this and to discuss the Commission's proposal, and the member states will come back to us by 15th of September with their opinions, and based on the opinion of the member state, the Commission will have his own opinion, and we'll propose possible or non-possible changes or no changes. That's going to be the outcome of the written procedure that we have ongoing with the committee. And we'll try to be very transparent on this one and try to come back to the member states far before the committee meeting in December. So we hope we can provide already some insight in October with the plans that the commissions have. And then we will start developing. And in this case, it's quite clear for the reporting decision, we will adapt it. So we have something, there was a common agreement, and based on the first feedback in the committee, but based on the first opinions we received, it's quite clear that people are supporting the presentation Vlado did, going to less reporting, have a more intelligent system for reporting these things. So this will be reflected in the reporting decision. That's something that we start drafting after the conference as soon as possible. And then we will wait the outcome of the written procedure to see if we will make any changes to the interoperability regulation. But, yeah.
Sides to the coin. One is the technical side, the technical guidance side, and the flattening of the encodings and so on, what I just mentioned earlier. The other side is whether you really want to make changes into the conceptual models that are in the implementing rules. And I think over the year the discussion changed or moved from we need to really change everything in the implementing rule to probably we can do most of the issue, or we can deal with most of the issues that we have on the technical guidance side, and that's why we're proposing this new activity. Nevertheless, there is this ongoing discussion and written procedure with the member states where we've asked them for concrete proposals on what to change in the legal act, and we're waiting for the feedback. We already received some, but based on that feedback, we will then make a decision whether the Commission will propose or not a change to the implementing, and on what topics.
Thanks, Dominique. Good question. I think last question, 2 minutes to go. Sabine.
Country fish that are going, you said that you want to set up like an information system that is accessible by all member states, and that you are planning or thinking about a yearly update regarding the country fish. Who is going to do the updates? Is that do we share that between the member states and the Commission, or who will be responsible for it?
Yeah, I'm going to repeat Sabine's question. It's Sabine is asking whether we are building a new information system and we're going to do regular updates of the reported or monitoring information, and who's going to do this. I think Vlado can answer this, but I might be able to answer this as well. And very briefly, it's going to be a system based on metadata. Your metadata will be used, and based on your metadata, we will generate the dashboard information and the compliance information with the indicators, but at the same time get all this information in the country fish. Now, the country fish, as Vlado presented, is mainly automated data coming from metadata, And then the first part is static, and that's about how is your coordination with member state. In many cases, this doesn't change. If it changes, then you've got a system where you can make the change as soon as possible. So then we'll go from, we'll be moving into zero reporting, because that's the final goal of the fitness check as well, zero reporting, but continuous monitoring. If you got a change in coordination structure, make the change in the fish. It's quite limited, and from the Commission side, we will do a yearly evaluation at a certain point, where we will say, well, this is the moment that we evaluate your progress, and we will provide the recommendations. That's our work. So we will be working in collaboration on this country fish, providing your information, some automated information based on metadata as much as possible, and from our side, some feedback on the performance of the implementation. So that's, we hope that we can implement this kind of system by 2019, supported by this new reporting decision. So I think that's it. Yeah, time's up. So thank you very much for attending us this early in the morning.